Welcome to the 8th video in the Colored Pencil course, brought to you by thevirtualinstructor.com. In this video, we're going to take a look at transferring images. In this module, we'll take a look at a couple of techniques for transferring photos or drawings to a surface for finishing with colored pencils. The first technique we'll look at is using graphite or transfer paper. Graphite paper is coated on one side with a light layer of soft graphite. When pressure is applied to the opposite side of the paper, the graphite is transferred to another surface. A photo or drawing can be placed on top of the graphite paper and then traced using a sharp pencil or pen, transferring the contours or outlines of the subject to the finished drawing surface. Let's take a look at how graphite paper may be used to transfer an image. First, you'll need a photo of whatever subject you want to finish with colored pencils. We'll be doing this dog for the next few videos. You also need a package of transfer or graphite paper. And you also need your finished drawing surface. We'll be using Bristol paper for this demonstration. First, adhere your drawing surface to a table so it doesn't move during the process. Then measure out a piece of graphite paper that will fit comfortably over the drawing surface. Tape it to the surface as well, making sure that the graphite side is face down. Next, align your photo over the top of the drawing paper. You'll be able to see just a bit through the graphite paper to do so. Then, adhere the photo to the top of the graphite paper. Now you can use a sharp pencil. In this case, I'm using a hard graphite pencil like an H pencil, and you can trace over the contour lines that you see. You may want to make notes during this process of where extreme changes of value take place. That way, when you start working with your colored pencils, you know where to make those changes in value. Any details that you want to include can be included, but if there's anything you want to leave out, you can also leave out. Once you've traced everything, you can carefully remove the graphite paper, peeling from one corner. What remains is a contour line drawing of your photo. Using an eraser, you can erase any stray marks that might have been left by the graphite paper. You can also use a kneaded eraser to lift up any of the graphite if the lines are too strong. Another technique for transferring images is the grid technique. The grid technique is a graphing system in which measured squares are drawn on the drawing paper and over the photo reference. Each square drawn on the photo matches a corresponding square found on the drawing surface. The artist is still required to draw the image, but the isolation of information in each square makes the process easier and leads to improved accuracy. So let's take a look at this process. The first thing we'll do is we'll draw a proportional grid on our finished drawing surface. This grid needs to be proportional to our photo reference. In this case, the photo reference that we are using is 8 inches by 10 inches. So we'll create a picture plane space that measures 8 inches by 10 inches. Once the picture plane has been defined, we can start to create the grid. We'll measure at 1-inch intervals on either side of the picture plane. Then we can use a ruler and draw straight lines connecting each one of the notches that we've created. Be careful that you don't press down too hard with the pencil. If you're not careful, you could create grooves in the surface of the paper that will not be easily filled with the colored pencil. We'll repeat this process with the two remaining sides. First, measuring at 1-inch intervals, and then connecting the notches using a ruler. Now we have a grid on our drawing surface. Next, we'll need to create a grid on our photo. Since our photo is already measured out at 8 inches by 10 inches, all we'll need to do is measure out the intervals. These will be measured at the same intervals that we used for the drawing surface, in this case, 1 inch. Then, using a ruler, we can connect each notch on either side of the photo reference. We'll do the same thing for the 2 remaining sides, first measuring out at 1 inch intervals. Then, using a ruler, we'll make connections between each one of the notches. This leaves us with a grid that's proportional to the grid we created on our drawing surface. You may decide to use a letter and number graphing system to help you keep up with what square you're in when we start the drawing process. In this case, I'll use letters across the top and numbers down the side. I'll repeat the letters across the bottom and on the opposite side. We'll do the same thing on the drawing paper. This step, of course, is not necessary, but may be helpful if you lose your place. Now we can transfer the information from our photo reference a square at a time to our drawing surface. We're going to pay special attention to the lines. It's okay to notice changes in value, and you may want to make marks on your drawing surface to indicate where extreme changes in value take place, or areas where the contrast might be more extreme. Here again, it's important not to press down too hard with the graphite pencil. If you're not careful, you could create grooves in the surface of the Bristol paper that might be hard to fill in with colored pencils. You'll want to use a graphite pencil here that's not too soft, which might blend in with the colored pencils later in the drawing, but also one that's not too hard that will create the grooves that I spoke about. I'm using an F pencil, which is very similar to an HB pencil or a number 2 pencil. Take your time and go 1 square at a time, and you'll create a line drawing that closely resembles your photo. So what did we discuss in this module? Well, we took a look at transferring images using graphite paper. And we also took a look at transferring images using the grid technique. In the next video, we'll start work on this drawing using colored pencils.